guys ready? Yeah. Epic ZVZ coming your way for sure. First player you've met today already once. I'll bring him out right away. He's awesome. Please give him a huge round of applause. Rock's Kiss sLivko. And his Zerg opponent in what will be his first broadcast match on stage, I think. From Australia, incredibly nice guy in true Aussie fashion. And I had the privilege of sharing a little too many beer with him the other night in true Canadian fashion. Please give a massively warm welcome to Gamescom NV mOOnGLaDe. Are you guys ready? We're gonna shake some hands. Good luck, have fun. And this time, we're going to Day 9 and Kalaris.
Welcome back to the Caster's Desk here, ladies and gentlemen, for the Intel Extreme Masters Gamescom 2012. My name's Kyle Harris.
And I'm Day 9. And there's already been some kind of weird results coming up, specifically mOOnGLaDe taking down Bomber, nearly taking down Grubby. So right now, these two players are currently 1-1 in their groups. As sLivko lost to Bomber, again, barely, and then managed to take down Minigun in this last round. So this is pretty important as we're now just passing the halfway mark of this group stage. Whoever wins this will be in a comfortable position for that top 3.
Yeah, I really can't believe how amazingly mOOnGLaDe has been able to perform here thus far. mOOnGLaDe has been flying under the radar a little bit in terms of how much the EU and NA scene really knows about him.
Yeah.
Again, he's been, practicing his own way down in his little corner of the world, just building up that momentum. And when I saw the results, I just could not believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, I mean, with mOOnGLaDe, he's always had a really strong career behind him. He's always been, he's trained in Korea. He performed brilliantly at IEM,
what a boss.
CBIT last year at the Grand Finals, managing to get in the top 4. And mOOnGLaDe now, even though he lives in Australia, and the Australian scene isn't perhaps as robust as the Korean or the European scene, he still is able to play on those Korean servers without as much lag. So he's been training a lot. But this is a matchup where he's pretty comfortable. I like his Zerg versus Zerg. Not nearly as much as a ZVT, but still he has a nice ability to be very aggressive with Ling Muta in this matchup.
Yeah, mOOnGLaDe, very, very strong. Again, the majority of the Australian community, whenever you see, like, we saw WCS Australia, for example, and then WCS Oceania.
It's all Zergs.
It was just Z. There wasn't really much presence there for our good Protoss and Terran buddies.
Literally top 8 only Zerg.
Yeah.
So he gets a lot of practice.
He does indeed. Now, we shall be jumping over to sLivko in just a little bit. And sLivko is no stranger to the Zerg versus Zerg matchup either. We've seen him perform very, very well recently at the World Championship Series Russian Federation Nationals. And he went up against Aristio there.
Yeah.
And his ZVZ is potentially his strongest matchup.
I do think sLivko is one of these players who's going to surprise a lot of people at this event.
Yep.
Already in his game against Bomber was doing a lot of creative stuff that you don't see. Mass Spore Crawler when his opponent goes Mass Sky Terran. And correctly getting the composition that he needed against Bomber. Just a couple of control flubs are what got in his way.
Yeah.
And in this match that he's going up against mOOnGLaDe, the first map being Ohana, I do think that sLivko needs to try to make sure he touches up on some of those potential control issues, as in the early game on this map, that is where the big losses will come from.
Yeah, I fully agree. So let's jump right into this game, ladies and gentlemen. As down to the bottom right-hand corner, we do have our Teal Zerg. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Rock's Kiss sLivko.
And in the top right, hailing from Australia, it's going to be mOOnGLaDe.
So coming back to those little control tidbits that you were talking about, Rock's Kiss sLivko had a pretty good run through the Russian Federation Nationals for the WCS. The only problem where he really kind of fell short was actually falling down into that lower bracket and then eventually being defeated by Rock's Kiss Titan, his teammate. Now, what was really, really evident going into that series particular, yes, it's not ZVZ, but, you know, all of these translate since it's the same game of StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
His control, his micro, is nowhere near as strong as his macro. And this is something that I was talking to about Empire Cass earlier on. And, you know, his real strength for sLivko really does lie in that macro game, but he's still, I mean, this in ZVZ, you can still get into the swing of things with that as well if you're able to apply that good defense early on.
And I mean, it looks like sLivko is going to be having to test his micro right away.
Yeah.
As he's going to be in a 15 pool situation versus the 10 pool of mOOnGLaDe. We did see Nest-T do this little maneuver the other day, but in Nest-T's position, he was scouting early on, making sure his opponent was not early expanding. And since he spotted that, we actually saw Nest-T go for the Queen M3 drones instead. mOOnGLaDe, on the other hand, is going to run headlong into a bunch of Zerglings right at the start. sLivko is throwing down his expansion, so a little bit more of a defensive play coming out of sLivko. But gosh, look at this. mOOnGLaDe's making up to 8 Zerglings now.
Yeah, I really liked the way in which Nest-T adapted himself there. He used the drone scout to be able to know exactly if he was going to be able to do the damage against some kind of hatch first build. Now, mOOnGLaDe is going to move across the map here, getting quite aggressive. But again, the spawning pool for sLivko is down at a really, really ample time here. Gas is going to be on the way as well, so he's not really going to fall behind in any kind of like speed race. And I don't really see this doing too much damage unless, of course, he gets really, really lucky.
Well, it looks like mOOnGLaDe might just go ahead and target this directly. Look at this great positioning. mOOnGLaDe can then make a nice arc to pick off any units that try to come down the ramp. Already we're seeing 6 Zerglings in production from sLivko, but they're not quite out yet. There's Zergling number 8, and oh my god, mOOnGLaDe. mOOnGLaDe's actually going to be able to take this out. What a play. And there mOOnGLaDe takes down the hatchery, and sLivko loses the drone as well.
Wow, sLivko's Zergling production was really, really late there. Lava Inject goes down for sLivko here to be able to continue his macro going, but mOOnGLaDe getting a cancel on that hatchery. It's not massive, but it is a big deal considering that mOOnGLaDe right now going to be retreating back, still has his gas on the way here, and hasn't taken his hatchery just yet, actually.
Baneling nest planting for sLivko. He's going to be doing the very, very defensive setup where he's not even going to be getting speed yet. mOOnGLaDe, on the other hand, his intentions are clear. Zergling speed already down, and knowing mOOnGLaDe, he'll likely be throwing down a Baneling nest and just going for a one-base play. Just trying to barrel his opponent to death. There's the Baneling nest. Here's the round of Zergling production, and in the most old-school fashion ever, I think we're actually going to have a one-base Zerg versus an early expander. Yeah,
it's more often than not now that we do see ZVZ go into those macro conditions. And just to give you a little bit of background on what sLivko actually had to do to reach this position that he finds himself in for the Intel Extreme Masters, he was able to take out, he actually got invited to the Stage 2 of the European Qualifier, and from there on he beat a flurry of players. But coming to ZVZ, he was able to take a series of Nurchio, Vortex, and Lelouch. 3 Zerg players that are phenomenally strong in this matchup. You know, I mean, it really does show testament to how well sLivko can play this matchup.
sLivko is going to need to be super careful. He does have 3 in his extractor, so he'll be able to replenish those Banelings if need be. There's no Spine Crawler down yet, and here's going to come mOOnGLaDe's huge surprise. He's going to be moving in with a huge number of Ling Baneling. Spreading into the front. There's that first Zergling leading. He's going to spot these 2. No, actually won't spot the Banelings. And right now sLivko knows something's up. That's a very early speed.
Well, there's been a potential huge misstep here by sLivko. He hasn't really had much scouting at the front of his opponent's base. His Overlord wasn't positioned very well. As such, these Banelings are going to waddle in here, trying to find some damage potential that they can find, but not really getting too much.
Wow, sLivko controlled that absolutely perfectly. Taking almost no damage, trying to run in. I mean, in the units lost tab, it is just a terrible spot for mOOnGLaDe right now. mOOnGLaDe is going to have to commit to this attack right now.
Yeah, he's still going to produce way more Zerglings on the way here. Baneling's going to be morphing in as well. Once again, we have defensive Banelings morphing in for sLivko as well. He's trying to get that Spine Crawler up. If he can get that up, it's going to be so much more easier to be able to deal with these Banelings. But so many Zerglings flooding in, getting caught by a few Banelings on the ramp. They're connecting massively. As sLivko will be able to clean this up for now, losing maybe 1 or 2 drones, but still really nice defense here by sLivko.
Oh, sLivko just did exactly what he needed to do. The Banelings on the ramp decimated everything. mOOnGLaDe was hoping that there was just a single Baneling on the top of the ramp, but there were 2, and he lost almost every single one of those units. That was just such a tragic misstep by mOOnGLaDe.
And now sLivko has the lava advantage. He has the queen advantage. Well, actually, he will have the queen advantage once these, because he has the 2 hatcheries up and running here. So for now, mOOnGLaDe having to play catch up. He does have a wave of drones on the way to be able to try and catch up to the 33 drones to the current 23 drones that he finds himself at here, and trying to poke forwards a little bit, but not really getting too much done at this point.
sLivko has essentially won this game, and I think that he's doing the best decision he can at this point. He's going to be going for the Roach Warren. He'll be able to get the fast Roach speed. Does he have 3 geysers up or 4? Nope, looks like just 3. So doing a standard Roach speed attack timing will just crush mOOnGLaDe's front. But, I mean, let's be honest, anything sLivko does at this point is going to get him the win, because look at that units killed tab. 38 units killed off. In the worker tab, 38 to sLivko.
Just had a lone Baneling connection there on a few Zerglings at the ramp here of mOOnGLaDe. He is throwing up a Spine Crawler to try and ward him against some kind of aggression, but you were right in your assessment. Completely right. sLivko has established himself such a good economy early on in this ZVZ that it's very, very difficult without being able to really do some damage to be able to actually catch up here once that Roach count begins to rise.
I love watching Zerg vs. Zerg nowadays because of the third base predominance in this matchup. You see mOOnGLaDe snuck in, picked that off, denied that expansion.
Yeah.
sLivko is just going to be adding on more and more and more and more drones. I think mOOnGLaDe's only option is to do something massive with either Spire Tech or Infestor Tech. If he tries to go down the Roach route, he will find himself sorely far behind. Would much so anticipate mOOnGLaDe to do a Spire transition, though.
Yeah, and in essence, again, Ohana is a very, very good map for that kind of thing. We spoke about it a little bit before with Lowly's style in ZVZ, and there's so much counterattack potential on this map because of how really wide open the map is in general. So that would be a pretty cool thing to see out of mOOnGLaDe here to try and claw himself back into this. He does have another wave of drones on the way to be able to take him actually a little bit ahead of sLivko in just a sec. But again, he's not going to have that much lava, and his army cost right now is not looking anywhere near as good as sLivko's.
Looks like mOOnGLaDe is going to try to answer by going for mass spine, mass drone. No doubt this is going to transition into Spire. If he does try to go Infestor, that would be kind of an odd choice. It's going to be quite a weak play. Won't be able to do much. There's the Spire going down. sLivko's getting ever closer to being able to spot that, and he's going to miss it. No, there he is.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we have the Zerglings actually putting on some pressure here at the third, trying to micro back as best he can to be able to avoid the damage from these Roaches. Does get away, though, with that, but unfortunately does not force the cancellation on that hatchery, and that's exactly what the kind of move that mOOnGLaDe would want to be able to execute here to bring him back into this. But again, he's going to be relying on kind of the surprise factor, but it's in essence almost already gone after having that Spire scouted out very nicely there by the Overseer.
I mean, this is just really dangerous. If I go to the Army Supply tab to see these 67 Army Supply, and right now mOOnGLaDe is desperately trying to add on yet 4 more Spine Crawlers. There's another hatch going down. A smart play by mOOnGLaDe, but he's making this play because he's far behind. There's odd risks you have to take to be able to get an edge in these positions, and amazingly, these 3 Zerglings, no. It's going to be like, oh my god, 3 Zerglings take this down. That would be a terrible story.
That would. As for now, sLivko actually going to be moving up into the Spine Crawler.
And the Banelings rush right down the front, and ooh, excellent micro there by mOOnGLaDe, trying to stay alive as long as possible, trying to connect with anything that he can. Does do an incredible detonation on those Roaches, but the fact of the matter is sLivko just has far too many ground units. The front gets absolutely decimated. 8 Mutalisks in production, but sLivko has plenty of Roaches, 12, hanging down at the front of mOOnGLaDe.
Yeah, by the time those Mutalisks actually end up popping and trying to kill off these Roaches, the Roaches are already going to have done their job anyway. More Spine Crawlers on the way, but the hatchery will end up falling here for mOOnGLaDe. And right now, sLivko looking to seal the deal here in the main.
Mutalisks out, but can't really do anything against that ground armor default by sLivko. Killing off as much as he can, but the Roach is just slowly trickling away at that layer.
Yeah, he does have that hatchery still on the way down to the southern position from his main here, but once that layer goes down, I mean, his economy right now is crippled in comparison to sLivko's anyway. sLivko really showing one of the great reasons he is so good in this matchup. Able to take those defensive positions quite nicely. It doesn't rely on too much micro, because you just put Banelings at the top of your ramp and kaboom kabar. If your opponent actually take it for extends,
a good game.
Then done and dusted for game number 1.
Clean win by sLivko, nothing too dramatic. I mean, I would say that mOOnGLaDe made quite the blunder trying to rush up the ramp, but mOOnGLaDe came out the gate with a little bit of an edge by killing off that hatchery at the front, but I think it may have been a little bit over-eager a choice to go for the big bust at the start with the Ling Baneling play.
Yeah, and I mean, it's becoming more and more predominant now that in ZVZ, if you actually do want to go for that higher aggression, more people are becoming comfortable with the defensive style, with the macro style, and they're able to transition out of what we see from the likes of mOOnGLaDe just there very, very easily. Now, one thing I do want to raise is the point that mOOnGLaDe there, after having that aggression fail early on, he knew how far he was behind. So he was taking all those risks saying, well, I'm going to lose anyway if I don't take these risks. They need to pay off here. It's that mentality that really, you know, it runs true with, you know, people who play at this particular level.
Yeah, I mean, that is true that there's a weird logic you have to step into when you're totally screwed.
Yeah.
Where you can't just say things like, well, I'm just going to, you know, play it safe. I'm going to go for upgrades. I'm going to macro. You have to say things like, what would really help me get far ahead?
Yeah.
Things like taking that hidden expansion at the left. A hidden expansion is a terrible idea if the game's normal, because it's a very easy way to put a risk there, and you can lose that expansion for no gain. But again, if you're already far behind, you're basically saying, well, I'm already losing. I can't be very losing. That's still the same thing as losing. So I may as well take the risk, take this expansion at the left, and that will help me pull in. Love that decision by mOOnGLaDe. Love the choice to get all these spine crawlers, but not quite enough units up for mOOnGLaDe to be able to defend.
Yeah, indeed. So, I mean, yeah, mOOnGLaDe has a lot of ZVZ experience. Again, we talked about this before with the C server being so populated by Zergs at that very, very top tier of play.
Yeah.
And I would really, really like to see mOOnGLaDe just bring out a bit of a macro game. He's already playing phenomenally here in this group stage.
Yeah,
bringing that
out
macro would be
Bomber.
good.
That's such a sick move to be able to pull that win off on Bomber. And Ohana's a little bit of the weird map where the 10 pool is a little bit unorthodox on other maps, but now that we're playing on Antigua Shipyard, I much more so expect a standard game out of mOOnGLaDe. I much so want to see a standard game out of mOOnGLaDe because his Ling Muta play in ZVZ is just a beauty to watch.
Yeah, it can be very, very strong. So let's jump straight on into Antigua Shipyard here, guys, as we go into game number 2 between these two epic Zerg foes. So spawning down in the southern location here as our blue Zerg.
Wait.
We do have, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for mOOnGLaDe.
And up in the top left, started the series out with a bit of a bitter loss versus Bomber, but has pulled it back and might go to 2-1 in the group. If you'd like that to be the case, give a cheer for Rocks Kisses sLivko.
So once again, we are on Antigua Shipyard, and this map, just in general, I believe it is cross positions enforced. So that's one very, very important aspect of this. I mean, in ZVZ, not as massive a deal unless somebody's going to be opening like really, really aggressive Muta play to, you know, traverse very short distances between, say, someone's main and someone's third, for example, if they were to spawn rotationally from one another. But yeah, I really do like now that this map does have that cross positions enforced. It really, really allows Antigua Shipyard to be a far more applicable map to tournament play.
Yeah, and as a result, I would expect both players to just straight expand. If either of them built a pool, I'd be quite surprised on this map. Here, it looks like sLivko moving out, or excuse me, mOOnGLaDe moving out, but sLivko opting for this pool first. I wouldn't mind this if there's a geyser going down so that he could do speedling aggression, but I think sLivko is being way, way overly cautious in this spot.
And I think that's right. Speeding aggression can work pretty well on this map because of how big the natural is if your opponent is going to go for hatch first. You've got so much room to move around in that area in comparison to, you know, other naturals, for example, on other maps. Very, very hard to kind of wiggle your way around those areas against very slow banelings, which are not really going to be able to keep up with you too soon.
You know, this is the sort of play coming out of sLivko that's almost, I really don't want to lose to a 6 pool or a 10 pool. I'll get a disadvantage against the 10 pool if it's done the way that mOOnGLaDe did last game, but in a sense, if you're in sLivko's spot, you're praying that your opponent runs a bunch of Zerglings up and just blows an advantage right at the start.
Yeah.
In this position, sLivko's actually sacrificing a drone economy by quite a lot. I mean, mOOnGLaDe is going to get 2 queens up, is going to get speed up, is going to be sprinting ahead, and if mOOnGLaDe can identify that this hatchery is delayed, then he's going to know, yeah, I can easily go straight for that layer tech. I can easily just build an extra spine crawler, and I'll be good.
Yeah, and I mean, just coming back to what you were saying about you know, the way in which sLivko is playing here against mOOnGLaDe, there's the potential that he hasn't really seen too much of mOOnGLaDe's ZVZ, unless of course he was adamantly scouting him out during this recent WCS series. So it could be the case, because it was the case for quite a while, a few 1 or 2 months back, that a lot of Zergs were just saying, well, you know, I'm going to open up 10 pool or 11 or 12 pool every single game and just have that, keep me in a defensive posture, drone up behind that if they do scout, you know, a little bit of earlier pool, for example, off their opponent. And, you know, it's up to sLivko whether or not he's really kind of done his research here on mOOnGLaDe.
So interestingly, it looks like sLivko is ahead in the supply count, but that's kind of one of those optical illusions going on right now, as mOOnGLaDe is going to be able to catch way up with his double queen in a bit. There, it looks like Baneling Nest and Spinecrawler going down for mOOnGLaDe. He's being a little cautious, but at the same time, sLivko is just not really. I mean, he's going for the Baneling Nest, which is a typical play early on. You kind of have to be able to deal with any amount of speed Zerglings at the start, but things are looking pretty typical, just the one exception of the Spinecrawler. I would hope that mOOnGLaDe would make an extended use of it and follow it up with a faster layer tech.
Yeah. I just want to come to one small thing that we're seeing here in the positioning of the Baneling Nests. There's the amount of times I've cast weekly cups and people have put Baneling Nest at the front of their bases like this, and there's been critical moments where the Baneling Nest has actually been sniped out, and then you just have no access to Banelings to the point where you're trying to deal with so much Ling aggression and it doesn't work out. Has been kind of catastrophic for some players. So I'm really quite a fan of the Baneling Nest in the back here to be able to just give it a little extra coverage against early aggression if your opponent's going to go for it.
Yeah, and I think mOOnGLaDe's doing the smart move. You make a bunch of Zerglings to be able to get any defense up that you need. But if you don't see anything, then you go on for the attack. sLivko is playing purely defensively, which only works if your opponent tries to break your front early on. In this spot where mOOnGLaDe's in the retreat, getting the layer up, mOOnGLaDe is getting himself at quite a nice advantage. We see the drone count slightly favoring sLivko at this point, but sLivko is going to be going for a roach tech before layer, so that's not going to be very beneficial for aggression.
No, he's going to have to sit back, hold tight, and stay stable here, as mOOnGLaDe's already gone up to those 4 gas geysers, saturating those instantaneously here to be able to make the tech of his choice. Now, most of the time it would be Mutalisk from here, and mOOnGLaDe already showed in the previous game, but potentially for different reasons, that he does like that Spire tech. Now, it could also be the Infestors. We'll have to see.
I would expect mOOnGLaDe to go Spire.
Yeah.
I like it a bit more on this map. It can control space a little bit better, and this is a nice play from sLivko taking the third base. He's using the Roach Warden to be able to defend that. And he's going to be, he's going to have to build these extra Baneling Nests, and as a result, he's going to have to also get a couple of extra Roaches. He doesn't want to go over Ling. These are the last Lings that sLivko really wants to have on the map. mOOnGLaDe not going to let this up. He's going to go straight for a push, running right in. Oh, not exactly a favorable trade for mOOnGLaDe. Somewhat more of an even one, but now mOOnGLaDe is going to be able to rush right on up to this hatchery, deal some damage, get his opponent out of position. He's got to be really careful against those Banelings.
And we have that Spire on the way for mOOnGLaDe at the back here to be able to continue transitioning here, trying to nibble away at this hatchery best he can do, and he does escape from those Banelings. So again, exploiting the mobility factor there. And mOOnGLaDe actually, I mean, unless sLivko was moving away from that ramp just there, I was sincerely hoping he wasn't going to. Otherwise, there was always that potential once again that mOOnGLaDe going to exploit that and try and nibble away at the hatchery once again.
Yeah. Now mOOnGLaDe advancing forward with these Zerglings. He's still trying to keep his opponent on his toes. mOOnGLaDe, you'll notice, actually adding on extra Zerglings right now. This is a brilliant maneuver. The supply count is a lead right now for sLivko, but that's because he's having to devote so much to Roaches. mOOnGLaDe is soon enough going to catch up when he downs this huge conservative bank to be able to put that pressure on. And again, a weird aspect of Mutalisk play is that it is designed to transition into Roach. You're trying to force your opponent to overbuild Queens, overbuild Infestors, overbuild Spores, and then your Roach Force rushes in and does massive damage. But until those Roaches are up, it's going to be up to the Lings to really do the hurt. And there, look at that, a Changeling drop to pick off a Baneling. What a play by mOOnGLaDe.
That is fantastic. That's actually one of the first times I've ever seen that kind of play come out here. mOOnGLaDe playing very, very well. He has a few tricks up his sleeve, to say the least, as for now he does have his third up and running. Drone counts right now, 58 here for sLivko to the 52 for mOOnGLaDe, and he does have that first wave of Mutalisks on the way to put his opponent potentially on the back foot.
sLivko still just relying on that existing pack of Lings he had to turn those into Banelings. with these Mutalisks popping out right now, there's a number of these spotting queens up in the front and center that are super vulnerable. mOOnGLaDe could just rush up to them right now. More are retreating for sLivko. Great identify right there by sLivko to see that he has a bunch of vulnerable overlords. Oh. And there he is. Not a great fungal growth at all. And there's the pick off on the Overseer. And immediately going for the Banelings, mOOnGLaDe is microing these Mutalisks excellently.
Yeah, that could have been a very, very brutal fungal growth, but he didn't really have much to chain anyway at that point. He would have just started picking away with those. And what a fantastic little run by here, realizing his opponent when he's focusing that down there. Fungal growth able to trap quite a bit of those, but at the same time, the Ling's going for the queen. He knows where he wants to do the damage, wants to limit his opponent's lava count, and gets those queens very, very nicely.
At this point in time, mOOnGLaDe is just exploiting sLivko's disorganization. He's going to be picking off any overlord he can. This Infester's totally out in the open. sLivko doesn't recognize it yet. I mean, this is exactly the way that you play in this Mutalisk style. sLivko's starting to stockpile up more Infestors. Massive drone production by sLivko at 15. Both players up at 70, but you'll notice mOOnGLaDe has that extra macro hatch. He hasn't gotten any upgrades. Whoopsie daisies. That's kind of a big misstep by mOOnGLaDe. I'm actually a little concerned for mOOnGLaDe that he didn't get those upgrades. Normally, you can just sprint right past an opponent, get 1-1 up earlier because your mutas are being so distracting.
No, you're right. I agree. It's great that that mOOnGLaDe is actually using this Mutalisk play because it just allows him to get that extra amount of drones out a little bit quicker than sLivko. We saw him at around that 75 drone count before sLivko was ever able to get there because sLivko was put on that defensive back foot there. And I mean, mOOnGLaDe, he's basically right now with the lack of those upgrades saying that, hey, well, I was able to establish a little bit more of an earlier economy than you, so I'm going to have to count more on the amount of roaches I'm going to have in comparison to you. But actually, sLivko just has such a high supply count right now in comparison to mOOnGLaDe.
I feel like the players are doing what the other players should be doing. I mean, here, this choice to go Hydrals for sLivko, that very much so should be mOOnGLaDe's play. As right now, sLivko had to focus on drones and Infestors for a while. It's a little bit better to stick with drone Infestor and then switch over to roach Infestor production. And on the other hand, mOOnGLaDe, I think, now going for Infestor, he would really love to have a whole bunch of Hydralisks in this spot because he actually has this extra macro hatch, so he can reinforce a little bit more strongly. But at this point, with these Hydras popping out for sLivko, he's trying to go for a little bit of a death force that it's going to allow him to take the central expansion. And there we have the Mutalisks stepping in, and they will pick off a single Infestor. But with these Hydralisks there, oh gosh, those Mutas are going to die so quickly. Yeah, that's very true. But mOOnGLaDe at this point doesn't really want too much of his supply weight in those Mutalisks at this point. He just wants, you know, 1 or 2, always threatening, keeping sLivko kind of in that defensive posture. But he doesn't want that in a straight-up engagement. It's not really going to do too much for him here. So sLivko, with that 200-200 right now, he's even moving out into the middle of the map. And this is a really quite a scary force with that much energy on those Infestors. Yeah, it's all about the energy right now. 47 roaches out for mOOnGLaDe. Both have 7 Infestors. But again, this death force for sLivko is trying to go for the Xel'Naga Watchtower and to secure the 4th. Right now, what sLivko needs to do is just lock out mOOnGLaDe from taking the 4th expansion and try to get a slow edge in that way. But mOOnGLaDe, he's not going to have any of that. He's going to start to step up into action. Yep, he is moving out now to the top right-hand corner of this map. 4th actually going down for him in a very cool position. Not really going to be spotted out too much here. And actually can maybe get 1 or 2 Overlord kills if he wants to. They were in a bit of an odd position themselves. But sLivko, meanwhile, trying to take control of this center location. I like the method that he's going to be using to try and expand here, because in essence, he's doing what Terrans do, expanding down the attack paths, meaning that it's going to be a little bit easier for him to defend and attack at the same time. mOOnGLaDe and sLivko have ridiculous amounts of money. We actually see mOOnGLaDe rushing up. He's going to start target firing down these Hydralisks, and oh, mOOnGLaDe's got to be really careful. He's not at a good angle, gets eaten by a huge fungal growth, and there we're seeing the Mutalisks trying to pick off the Infestors 1 at a time, but the arc for sLivko is ridiculously good. The amount of fungals landing on this pack of roaches in the center is just terrible for mOOnGLaDe, but somehow, with these Mutalisks, he's been able to pick off most of the Infestors, and amazingly, mOOnGLaDe has gotten himself into a great arc. How did that happen? I guess the defense upgrade's pretty darn good there for mOOnGLaDe with that armor carapace. So for now, he will be able to pick off that base, and he trades most of sLivko's army and his potential 4th for not too much of his army, whilst his 4th is still intact. Not droned up just yet, but it's still there. Something went really wrong in that battle. sLivko had a lot of his forces coming down on the top side. He got some excellent fungals, but then overly put down the extra infestors instead of doing something.
Actually, sorry, now that I think about it, Day9, if sLivko is, I mean, mOOnGLaDe had +1 carapace on roaches. If sLivko had a lot of infested Terrans and Hydralisks, which are attacking very fast, but in small packets, is that not absorbing like quite a lot of damage there to be able, in comparison?
I mean, yeah, but the amount of damage it's still doing is still insane. I mean, mOOnGLaDe just got the way better exchange. There was too much focusing on the infested Terrans by sLivko as opposed to on picking off the major units, but mOOnGLaDe was target firing like a mofo during that battle, picking off 3 infestors with those Mutilis at the backside before they ever really stepped into the battle.
Well, I mean, sLivko's not down now by any means. He is still max. He still has a very, very nice contingent force here. He has 15 Hydralisks, 40 Roaches, and 7 Infestors right now, going up against a very, very healthy force here from mOOnGLaDe. Once again, denying the 4th, though. sLivko needs to actually make something happen with a 4th base. Otherwise, mOOnGLaDe's going to out-macro him.
Looks like sLivko now realizes, uh-oh, there's a 4th base already up. Getting behind in the gas count is just terrible in this matchup. No hive yet for mOOnGLaDe. mOOnGLaDe actually now going for a spine crawler wall. He has way too much money. He doesn't actually need that much. Both players can tend to sit at 60 to 65, that mid-game amount of drones. Never want that many more if you're going for these maxed army battles because, I mean, being just a couple roaches behind is just devastating. And there we see, oh, mOOnGLaDe. He's just going to let his 4th fall, it looks like.
How many roaches is he sending up there? He's actually sending up, 1 or 2, but yeah, it really doesn't look like that initially. He will be able to reinforce this location, though, and importantly, he actually has Tunneling Claws and Burrow, while sLivko has none of this, so he could quite easily use that tech advantage in his favor, eventually going into the late stage, and he's even getting that hive on the way. So, I mean, he has the potential transition to go to Ultralisks at some point, and that is so, so brutal against roaches because they're doing bonus damage to roaches because they're not locked down by fungal growth and because roaches clump up so very well against those Kaiser Blades.
What's really nice about what sLivko did in sacrificing all those roaches to kill off the top side, maybe he gets the hatch, maybe he doesn't, but he replaces all that food with infestors. He's now getting 8 total infestors, and as you were talking about, there's the Tunneling Claws starting to step into action, and I think mOOnGLaDe is kind of testing the waters a little bit. If it's going to turn out to be good, he's going to unburrow. He's going to target fire all the infestors right away.
Though. Oh, he's able to be spotted. The Overseer playing a very pivotal part there. Unburrowing now, coming in from both sides with so many infestors to back it up. He's going to throw down infested Terrans everywhere. Fungal growth laying down across the entire force of mOOnGLaDe as well. And this is just an absolute green mess, Day9.
I mean, this is so difficult to predict who's going to come out on top, but right now it looks like mOOnGLaDe suddenly surges forward with a tremendous amount of units. 24 Hydralisks in production for mOOnGLaDe, while there's 33 roaches for sLivko. sLivko desperately trying to catch up with those basic aggressive units, but mOOnGLaDe going for a little bit more of a closer. We see sLivko's infestor count is very high. Actually, both players very high, up at 10, but mOOnGLaDe is almost out of energy. sLivko has plenty on his infestors, so after sLivko defends this, it's time for him to step up and do a round 2 attack, but honestly, mOOnGLaDe has such a huge economy. I mean, look at the amount of Hydralisks that just popped out.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, going into that engagement, mOOnGLaDe did have the upgrade advantage. He had 2-2 against the 2-1 of sLivko. 2-2 has only now just finished up with that carapace finishing up there. But right now, mOOnGLaDe going up to that 3-3 very quickly. sLivko hasn't even, he's just begun his hive here. So he's not going to be able to get to 3-3 anytime soon against mOOnGLaDe. And once that comes out for mOOnGLaDe, he is going to be in phenomenal shape.
Oh, sLivko revealing those drones on accident. Now mOOnGLaDe immediately knows that there must be some sort of hidden expansion down at the south side, sending a pair of roaches there. mOOnGLaDe in a dominating position with a dominating army. I mean, look at the army value tab. We see that mOOnGLaDe's significantly higher, about 1,000 higher in each category, just due to those Hydras.
And we have the Spire on the way, actually for both players here. Greater Spire going to be morphing in from mOOnGLaDe, using that muter transition from the mid-game to really aid him in getting that tech up later on with that Hive. It means he's going to get it way quicker than sLivko, even if both players went for the Hive at exactly the same time. And right now, mOOnGLaDe picking off a little bit down to the south.
mOOnGLaDe sending a nice little force here just to swat aside anything that could possibly get into the way. mOOnGLaDe also just sending the remainder of his drones up to those top side, and it looks like sLivko notices and instantly sends his the bulk of his force over. He's going to retreat with these spine crawlers. He's going into defensive position. He's essentially sacrificing this expansion in exchange for killing off mOOnGLaDe. And there it looks like mOOnGLaDe is going to lose a lot of drones. Most of his drones are actually right here, Kalaris.
Yeah, they are, and from that point on, his economy is going to be very, very battered indeed. He's even sending up the Hydras. I can't help but feel that, I mean, the damage has already been done at that location. Do you not think he maybe should have taken out his opponent's, like, 4th middle base there and kind of backed off?
And it looks like it was all a ploy from sLivko to get control of the center. mOOnGLaDe manages to nab an amazing fungal growth on all those roaches, but right now, sLivko's continuing to lob the infested Terrans up. It's unclear, again, who's going to be able to come out on top, but there's actually 20 infested Terrans out for sLivko. He launched his first, was able to take control of the center more easily, and the fungal on the burrowed infestors. mOOnGLaDe will not be able to retreat with them, and sLivko tips it back in his favor.
Oh, but at the same time, Day 9, we have mOOnGLaDe actually going for 30 roaches and 7 corruptors behind this. Greater Spire's already finished up for him, so he's going to be able to morph in those Broodlords way quicker than sLivko would ever be able to do. But he does have that Spire available to him, so he could quite easily go for the corruptors to try and deal with that. The only question is that mOOnGLaDe had such a bank for so long. Can sLivko really catch up after having that base down to the south sniped off?
Not sure sLivko is going to be able to withstand this push. It's really going to come down to whether mOOnGLaDe overbuilds Broodlords, and ooh, he's burning a lot of his cash on that. He's going to actually put himself at maxed. And look at the army, just reading it out loud from mOOnGLaDe is insane. 18 Hydras, 38 Roaches. Only 1 Infestor, though. sLivko has 10. So sLivko can potentially nab those Broodlords with the fungal growths, throw the infested Terrans underneath, but sLivko's going to have to be very careful not to morph Broodlords of his own. He actually needs those as Corruptors against this force. I'm
scared for sLivko as to if he's going to be able to close the gap with those Broodlords all, since there's so much to buffer here, and with the Broodlings there to be able to buffer as well, it's going to be so difficult for him to get to those really big, meaty, damage-dealing units. But still, this composition for mOOnGLaDe right now in the CVZ is ridiculous.
And there it looks like the big reveal. sLivko now knows what he's up against. Will he cancel these Broodlords? They're already in the midst of morphing. The center expansion falls yet again. sLivko's been unable to get his footing in that top side. sLivko does have a couple of units up here at the top to be able to assault that 4th base. mOOnGLaDe is in an amazing position.
Yeah, he's just going to siege at this location, bring down that static defense a little bit at a time. He's constantly being very wary with his Broodlords, making sure no Infestors are moving forward and microing those back to be able to save them. But wait a minute, he's actually going to go for... Oh, no, pulling back for now.
Some silly Broodlings firing at Broodlings sort of wars. And mOOnGLaDe has the big arc, and it looks like sLivko's going for it. He's stepping up, but mOOnGLaDe hitting from all angles. Infested Terrans being lobbed every which way, but the arc from mOOnGLaDe is absolutely magnificent. Despite all these infested Terrans, mOOnGLaDe is just completely surrounded. Literally a circle of blue enveloping sLivko. GG from sLivko. mOOnGLaDe takes a win.
What an amazingly orchestrated engagement there from mOOnGLaDe. He had a slight advantage anyway because of the bank he had, because of the army size that he had, and because of its composition. But hey, what better a way to make it as efficient as possible as to get that 360 global death ball?
I mean, it's kind of funny that on paper, you just say, what's the best way to deal with fungal? To not be clustered up. And we've seen both players trying to do this all game long, but at no point other than that last battle was it as well illustrated. I mean, literally the Roaches were in a line. There was no clump at the back. Absolutely no Roach not participating in that fight. mOOnGLaDe, despite everything he did in that last game, though, has only tied the series up. sLivko clearly a little distressed after that match.
I'm so surprised by mOOnGLaDe coming into this tournament. I literally did not have a clue that he was at this level of play right now. Yes, he had a few stints in GSL very, very early on and was able to perform very well. But he's been off the radar internationally for quite a while now. And he's performing very, very well. That's not to say sLivko is down and out by any means. He was in that game for quite a long time. A lot of it was in the favor of mOOnGLaDe in that last kind of 10, 15 minutes worth of the game. But he showed in game 1 here that mOOnGLaDe is not having this free win at all.
Yeah, it's really that sLivko's kind of an up-and-coming star.
Yeah.
on the European scene. There's a lot of eyes on him. There's a lot of excitement about can he continue to perform at the level he's performing at. But I think we're again seeing that mOOnGLaDe has this sort of weird bent on how the matchup should flow.
Yeah.
Opening up with the 10 pool in the first game, then going for Mutalisks in the second game. And of course, this is the lucky stuffed kangaroo for mOOnGLaDe, because isn't it adorable? It helps give him power.
It does, it does. And just to step away from, in-game analysis and in-game looking at things, sLivko is such a character. We saw at the end of the Russian Federation Nationals, he was up on stage with Titan, who ended up winning the tournament, and just during the last few seconds of the broadcast, he managed to somehow take away the trophy from Titan and potentially sneak off with it Pink Panther style, which was so amazingly fantastic. He's a really, really cheerful chap.
But I mean, despite that attitude in this position, you're looking at him just looking very distressed, his head just sort of sideways, clearly frustrated about that last game. And I think the frustration has got to be coming from the fact that that expo at the top right was completed without him having ever scouted it. It's so difficult to get a fourth base at all on that map, and sLivko just let mOOnGLaDe get it easily.
So, without further ado, guys, let's jump into game number 3 here. We've loaded up onto Daybreak for this. So let's get it on, as mOOnGLaDe looking very, very focused here. Moving on into game number 3. As spawning down to the bottom left-hand corner, we will have our blue Zerg guys playing phenomenally. Give it up for mOOnGLaDe.
And up in the top right, an excellent defensive player. Can he pull it off and cinch the series 2-1? It's Rocks Kisses sLivko.
So, if there were any map to really see a hatchery first from ZVZ, this would be the one, really. You see a lot of hatchery first on this map. It's very, very easy to be able to get that going because of how far the rush distances are, because of the fact that the only real little poking aggression that can occur that early on is slow speed Zerglings, and they don't traverse the map all too well here.
Yeah, again, I think that given sLivko's patterns, he's going to want to go pool first, but I think that's such a mistake on this map, unless you want to do something like an 8 pool or something really crazy. mOOnGLaDe advancing forward, and again, sLivko goes for this super hyper defensive pool first build. And I've been talking a lot about getting earlier injects and the earlier 2 queens, but I think the biggest deficit of this opening from sLivko is that there's almost one way that you can play it off. So it makes it completely transparent of how to respond.
Yeah, and I mean, sLivko now is going to be able to go for his hatchery, but again, with that extra like 30, 40 seconds here for mOOnGLaDe, that means he's going to have 1 extra round of lava on that natural. And when lava is such an important commodity in this matchup, more so than ZVP and ZVT, it's really, really, really adamant that that kind of just small difference early on can make a very big difference, not only going into the late stages if you want to actually pump out like an extra 4 drones, for example, but if you want to get aggressive and have an extra 8 lings out when numbers are very, very small early on, and that portion being 8 lings can be literally, I don't know, 40% of an army.
Yeah, and I mean, we even saw Nesty do that exact exploit in Zerg vs. Zerg yesterday, where he was literally doing this build that mOOnGLaDe did, and then he rallied back 24 Zerglings and then sprinted forward, and his opponent didn't even have any answer at all. mOOnGLaDe having those 2 overlords in an excellent position to see any Zerglings coming out the front or out the back entrance. So sLivko, again, does not really have that many options. He'll probably just be throwing down the Baneling Nest first if he's feeling super defensive. He'll be throwing down speed more commonly, but already mOOnGLaDe is ahead in that upgrade. He immediately went for gas before even starting the spawning pool, so that way he could be able to do this transition follow-up. And by leaving those guys in gas, mOOnGLaDe's essentially declaring that he does want to go for some sort of Baneling play.
Yeah, and he's going to have around a 25, 30-second window here where he's going to be able to exploit with speed as well. It's a very, very small window, but again, ZVZ is very, very methodical, very about those small little advantages that you can gain. Hell, every single mirror matchup is really about those small little advantages you can gain. But the speed increment change from having speed to not having speed is so brutal to deal with if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, most basically, you just can't move out at all because you'll just be taken out if your opponent has speed. If you misjudge that Zergling count just once, and this is what makes people, or I guess I should say, is what made people think, oh, Zerg versus Zerg, such a luck-based matchup. I move out and he has speed and I just get killed. If I move out and he doesn't have speed, then I'll be able to win. But in a sense, players are starting to realize, you know, you just have to be defensive at this early part in the game. You absolutely must be as defensive as possible, get those Banelings up, and if you want to do aggression, you have to get the speed out. You have to get the Overlord positioning into a good spot.
Yeah, and for now, how many units does mOOnGLaDe actually have out on the map? He only has the 4 Zerglings. He's adding on 1 or 2 more, droning up behind this. 38 drones right now for sLivko to the 32 drones for mOOnGLaDe. But, you know, again, this is all harks back to the defensive posture that sLivko actually put himself in from the very, very beginning. He gets that little bit of an advantage, actually with a 10-drone advantage right now. How is mOOnGLaDe going to be able to kind of punish or catch up?
It looks like mOOnGLaDe's answer is to go for this insta layer, but he's also getting Roach Warren and a +1 upgrade. And wow, mOOnGLaDe actually getting all 4 gas geysers. That's quite uncommon to see out of a player who wants to be going Roaches. sLivko's doing a little bit more of a typical play. Playing very defensively. In the unit count, we see that neither player really has done much, but mOOnGLaDe really getting that nice fortune of hopping up into the main base. I'm a little curious as how sLivko got so damn far ahead in that drone count.
I don't know myself. There's some mysteries revolving around ZVZ sometimes where, you know, it's just 1 or 2 lava injects maybe have been missed by mOOnGLaDe. I haven't been keeping a full eye on what's gone on there, but that is something that could contribute to that slight disparity. Now, one small thing as well that we're seeing from sLivko here is that he's actually morphing his natural into the layer, and that just gives it a little bit extra hit points to be able to bear the brunt of any kind of aggression that would come along. It's a very, very small, minor thing, and if you do lose it, well, I mean, if you were going to lose your natural anyway, it's pretty much game over at that point, right? So you may as well give it that extra little bit of tank to be able to keep it alive that bit longer.
Oh, I really like this play right now from mOOnGLaDe. He sees his opponent, has thrown down a hatchery here, and he has a 50-second lead in speed. Wait, this is a wild play out of sLivko.
Oh.
He's going straight for the Hydralisk Den. He is just accepting fully that he's not going to have the speed and time. Here we see the delayed third from mOOnGLaDe, but with this early macro hatch, mOOnGLaDe is just going to be rallying all his Roaches back, and he's going to do a massive speed timing push, and I don't think it's going to turn out very well for sLivko.
Yeah, mOOnGLaDe playing that very standard caliber of ZVZ on Daybreak, trying to find a way into poke and try and deny that third. Wasn't really able to do though, so again, we mentioned earlier sLivko's very, very defensive posture, and he was able to save his hatchery from having just around 100 hit points kind of taken away from it. That shows that he is so on the ball, knows exactly where his opponent is going to be moving at any given point in time with his overlord positioning, and able to really kind of save that very, very early on.
mOOnGLaDe still has not elected to move out yet. He's been nailing the injects in his home, has pretty much nothing on any of those queens. And now we see sLivko getting a little confused. He's building spore crawlers. He hasn't actually scouted.
And interestingly enough, it's very, very odd that once again, we have 64 drones to the 43 infestors here. So, sorry, 43 infestors, good God. 43 drones here. So, such massive disparities between these two players.
Wow.
sLivko.
mOOnGLaDe with an excellent read, seeing his opponent going Hydra Baneling, building a lot of Banelings of his own, and mOOnGLaDe about to just leap into action with a huge timing push. His +1 is done. sLivko is going to be in a tough spot.
Yeah, very much so. Those Roaches trying to create themselves a very, very nice concave, and indeed they do. The hatchery providing sLivko with a little bit of a better position, and massive Baneling hits rain down on the army here of sLivko. mOOnGLaDe looking to demolish the army here of sLivko.
Oh, mOOnGLaDe with a brilliant timing push. The mass blast of Banelings, the last thing you'd expect when you're going for this early expand. And now sLivko with the slow Roaches cannot withstand the force from mOOnGLaDe. mOOnGLaDe, the Aussie who originally made a huge name for himself in Korea and IEM, doing it again here in 2012.
mOOnGLaDe, he's done quite a bit of damage here. Admittedly, he will be pushed back for now, but those Hydralisks do not come cheap here when you're actually just going up against Roach Bane. He's going to lose a few more Roaches there as well, but actually poked in at the front, trying to pick off that hatchery once again with a second force of Roaches, and we'll have to fall back here. But again, actually, if he doesn't do damage at this point, sLivko's economy is way above mOOnGLaDe's here. I'm a little bit worried for him.
Wait, sLivko may have amazingly stabilized here. We have some Roaches running into the main base, a nice little maneuver from mOOnGLaDe, but he's not actually getting that far ahead. He's just equalizing. He must build some drones if he actually wants to get an edge here. He's still way underneath his opponent. 60 drones out for sLivko, 43 for mOOnGLaDe. sLivko, I thought, was dead for sure, but mOOnGLaDe should have pulled back and finished his hatch when he had the chance.
Yeah, well, he's going to try and dive in there now to get it, and indeed he will do. He might lose one or two Roaches in the process, but that is a very nice pick-off. sLivko trying to move a few of those Roaches around to be able to get a little bit of damage off there whilst the retreat does occur here from mOOnGLaDe, but he gets out lickety-split, and for now sLivko having to fall back to the potentials of an infestation pit.
mOOnGLaDe is at 2-0 attack upgrades, but this is something that we've seen throughout mOOnGLaDe's games at IEM. He devotes everything to these attacks, but when they wrap up, he just doesn't really have anything to stand on. Yeah. He's committing himself to having to win in these battles.
Yeah, and I mean, getting that third is a win in itself, but actually that's a lot of Roaches from sLivko here. And with that infestation pit going down, pathogen glands now being researched, once sLivko is able to get up a few infestors, and if mOOnGLaDe doesn't actually establish himself a little bit of a base economy or a stronger army than just this, he is going to be in Frowntown, I'm going to say.
Looks like mOOnGLaDe's decided that he's actually behind. mOOnGLaDe is likely going to be going for this attack with a little split running up into the main again. In the income tab, we see that it's a little bit still favoring sLivko because he's long-range mining, but not by a tremendous amount. And here he is rushing up. He's going to pick off this queen and pick off the queen and Roach. A good angle for mOOnGLaDe, but with a spine crawler there, mOOnGLaDe is going to be forced to retreat. mOOnGLaDe must pull back and get into a better position. He is just sacrificing a lot of Roaches here for nothing. What is mOOnGLaDe doing? He has to be really careful here. He's again going to go for the third, and there's the transfuse, and he takes it down.
Now he needs to retreat as quickly as possible here. He needs to save so many of these Roaches. He still has a few more Roaches reinforcing here. sLivko for now on the hot pursuit of this army and unit counting station. We have 33 Roaches to the 32 Roaches, but there are a few Hydralisks out here for sLivko. But again, he has that infestation pit down with pathogen glands finished up. So once these infestors come out for sLivko, mOOnGLaDe still is stuck on this tech, not really saturating his third, and it's a bit odd from here.
mOOnGLaDe, just if he builds an infestation pit, this is going to just tip so much into his favor. My concern, though, for sLivko's point of view is, does sLivko realize that he's not actually in a bad spot? Can sLivko look at the situation and say, oh yeah, I'm fine? He's sacrificed way too many Roaches trying to kill off my third. He's doing it again and again and again and again. I just need to continue to defend, and I'll slowly get the lead. Once these infestors pop out, as you say, that's what's going to lock down this pushing.
That's really an astute read, because sLivko doesn't have any information about his opponent's third whatsoever, so he hasn't scouted out for quite a while at this point. He poked in at the front, but really didn't see too much, and look at this.
Wow, and the infestors instantly do a great snatch on those Roaches. mOOnGLaDe is going to lose these for really not that much at all, and mOOnGLaDe has to recognize, and that suddenly triggers him into going, oh my god, I better get some drones up. Oh, another gigantic fungal. mOOnGLaDe is engaging at a terrible angle. What is mOOnGLaDe doing? He's decided that his Roach count is high enough? No. He's realizing what a mistake he's made. He's going to have to pull back yet again. What angle does he go along? He has almost no retreat paths, and in that unit loss tab, we're starting to see the story told.
sLivko just had a far superior concave in that engagement. mOOnGLaDe had to really compromise there and just have to fall back, mitigating a little bit of his losses by ending up saving some of those, taking a few losses on the retreat as well. But right now, still, sLivko so far ahead in terms of the supply, ahead in drone count, ahead in tech with 6 infestors out now to be able to continue laying down those fungal growths. And once they gather up a little bit of energy, mOOnGLaDe is going to be in such trouble. Once again, he's been in trouble for such a long time, but again, sLivko has not had the intel to be able to really fully realize that at this point in the game.
sLivko is actually ahead of mOOnGLaDe in pretty much every regard. More roaches, more hydras, more infestors. Now we're seeing mOOnGLaDe go for a counterattack again, but he's going to run right into a pack of units. He's just going to start doing the ring around the rosy play, trying to pull back sLivko every which way.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really going to be able to work. The reinforcement roaches from sLivko did pop to be able to take out that small little pack that were trying to do some damage there and trying to pull him back. But now, look how many roaches are moving into this middle of this map. We have 54 roaches right now to the 39 of mOOnGLaDe. I don't even need to mention the infestors at that point to say that sLivko has a very, very nice lead here.
But we are seeing a lot of hydras popping out soon for mOOnGLaDe. mOOnGLaDe's going to have to bank everything on this attack. It's going to have to be a perfect arc, but the infestors now stepping in, throwing down some of those infested Terrans. mOOnGLaDe does have an incredible arc, but there the fungal growth are going to tell the whole tale. sLivko, who lived through an insane timing push at the start of the game, through relentless aggression, now doing the first major attack of the game, and it is more than enough to break down the third. The entire army of mOOnGLaDe evaporates, and sLivko, mOOnGLaDe admitting a huge blunder.
And this game, more so than game number 1 and 2, stand a testament to the way in which sLivko plays ZVZ. We said initially, he is able to go for that defensive posture, able to really kind of deal with anything his opponent is going to throw at him. Once that wave comes from mOOnGLaDe, it was, as you rightly said, a very, very strong timing push there. But sLivko able to stand tall.
So that does mean sLivko is going to be joining Elfie in the 2 wins club. Currently in Group C, there's kind of an interesting set of results. Grubby, Bomber, and Elfie are the 3 players in those top 3 positions. In fact, Grubby is currently leading the group. sLivko and mOOnGLaDe exchanging some friendly words. sLivko clearly in a good mood after winning this series, but I think very relieved after that crazy aggression out of mOOnGLaDe.
I think, you know, sLivko's a very bulky guy. He's very muscular. So mOOnGLaDe clearly, I think he may have lost that intentionally in order to be able to avoid the wrath of sLivko. he's extremely powerful. I've seen him break tables and everything. Man, he's a beast.
I wouldn't be surprised to see sLivko just run over and punch Andrew Pender right in the face if he lost, but doesn't mean mOOnGLaDe will live to see another day. But mOOnGLaDe now in one of the bottom 3 slots. He is in the in a 1-2 position in the group. Minigun is 0-3, and the other 3 players, actually Grubby, Bomber, Elfie, and sLivko, are actually all 2-1 in the group, which is kind of a interesting result to look at.
I think going into this group, there was the big favorites of Bomber and Grubby coming out of that open bracket. For me, sLivko was 3rd in that list, as I've had a real affinity for sLivko, a real kind of admiration for his play whilst being so involved in the European scene here. But there's still this looming kind of presence of mOOnGLaDe, just showing this powerful, surprising presence that you cannot discount here in this group stage.
It's interesting to note that even though mOOnGLaDe's 1 and 2 in the overall groups, his win is versus Bomber 2-0.
Yeah.
Very one-sided game. So a pretty interesting result. And
very much so. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be sending it over to an interview with our winner and Jarrett Kale on the stage.
I'm standing here with our winner, Rocks Kiss sLivko. Give it up. That was a very close series, tough CVZ. What in the 3rd game, what was the difference? What decided in your opinion?
In the first game, I think that mOOnGLaDe played too Mutalisk, but when I see this so more roaches, I say, wow, I lose. But really, that's why I have only drones. I know I have army, but I don't know. He kill me hatchery, and then come back. I think I go to attack, I click, and if I... No, that's why I have bad situation, but I see his free bases and see that he no have drones. I have drones, he no, but I no have free hatchery. Okay, and he built one army, I built one army too, but I have more drones. That's why I have better economically, and that's why for his attack I have better situation, I think, and I win. That's why I have technology units. It's Hydralisk, infestors. It's so good. It's helped for me really. But I have mistakes. That's why I not scout and think that be Mutalisk. Like now, mOOnGLaDe love Mutalisk, but really. It's crazy.
Well fought. Is ZVZ, is it your favorite matchup?
I don't know. Maybe not. I think my ZVT is so... I play so bad. ZVT, but PVZ and ZVZ I understand, and I can't win all.
Is there anything you want to say to your fans here and online, even in Russian if you want?
I love all. No.
He's got nothing to say to you guys. Well, good luck in the rest of the tournament. Take care.